Welcome to Robed Reactions, Episode 1. What should I react to? Well, I figured I'd react to some coding videos of some sort, but most of them are pretty boring, so I don't know if that's going to work too well. So I'm going to try to find something a little more exciting. Let's see what Patrick Shui learned from 10 years of coding as a software engineer, not as a millionaire this time. This is a new video. Let's
hey, TechLead here,
take
welcome back.
a look.
Now, I have been coding for well over 10 years, and I've worked as an ex-Google, ex-Facebook tech lead.
Hold on, I'm going to back up a little bit and adjust my cam stuff. So yeah, this is a new video, what I learned from 10 years of coding as a software engineer. And I don't have headphones now right now, so I apologize. Sound's going to be a little messed up. But let's have a watch and I'll give my opinion.
In this episode, I wanted to teach you some of the most valuable insights and tips I've learned as a software engineer during my time. And a lot of these lessons I've learned over hard struggles, long hours debugging trash code and technical debt, or simply dealing with uncooperative and arrogant teammates. So I wanted to give you some of the top lessons that I've learned.
Why do I have a feeling that he's the uncooperative and arrogant teammate? Him. Why do I have that feeling?
That you can avoid some of the same mistakes that I may have made in the past, and this is going to save.
Mistake number 1, I was arrogant. Mistake number 2, I was whatever.
A bunch of time.
You get it.
So without further ado, let's get into it. The top lessons that I've learned in over 10 years of software engineering.
Quick pause. Here's my sponsor. Click this crap. I'm just going to skip all that. So, yep, that's what he's going to do. Yeah, you got sponsors. Congrats. Okay, let's see if this is past the sponsor.
Software engineers, we're having a design technical discussion, and yet not a single person would have actually looked at the actual code base. Everybody, maybe they read the document, they read some internal wiki, they read an email, and they're
Hold on, I gotta back this up a little bit. He said something that I might have missed.
The first lesson is that nobody knows how to code. So I could be in...
The first lesson is that nobody knows how to code. That's actually a decent assumption. Even if somebody does know how to code in some language, there's so many other languages and you can't expect them to know how to code in all of them. It's just not realistic. But let's hear his point out.
In this room with 30 self-proclaimed software engineers, we're having a design technical discussion, and yet not a single person would have actually looked at the actual code base.
Wait a second. You're having a meeting with, hold on, let me make sure I got this right, 30 other software engineers about design, and they haven't looked at the code yet. You don't look at the code for, well, it depends how you're looking at it, but typically when you're designing something, you want to just kind of figure out how you want it to work. The code is very technical. You don't look at that first. You look at the overview first, which is often not code. So okay, I want to say you're wrong on this point already there, Mr. Shui, or however you say your name, but
everybody, maybe they read the document, they read some internal wiki, they read an email, and they're there ready to discuss something, but nobody actually looked at the real code. And if you think about it,
you would think some of them would have browsed the code. What makes you think they didn't look at the code? Did you go ask every single one of them? Are you just saying this for your video? Do you just need a point for your video? Is that what this is? I'm going to turn on my other light so I don't look so much like Jekyll and Hyde here. All right.
Most people in the team don't know how to code. The designer doesn't know how to code. The product manager has never seen the code. The engineering manager has no clue what the code.
Wait, I thought you said 30 software engineers. Now you're talking about non-software engineers. Well, obviously.
So I could be in this room with 30 self-proclaimed software engineers.
30 self-proclaimed engineers, but later they're not even engineers. They're just in other job titles. I'm freaking confused by this first point.
They're so preoccupied with their own small little features, and on the side they're playing ping pong, surfing Reddit, and watching Netflix, that in the end very few people are actually looking at the code base. Most other people in the
Hold on a second. Does this seriously have a positive like to dislike ratio? How is that possible? How is this
company? They're either positioning themselves strategically, getting into personal branding. You got
Wait, look. There are interviews. There are technical interviews. People that get into positions should be qualified. If they're not, it's their managers. I don't even want to get into it anymore.
Some software engineers who
he's just obviously speaking total BS right here to get view time, and it's working. Here I am viewing it.
the higher level, you got some people writing a bunch of emails, responding to emails, writing a bunch of documentation, coming up with wiki pages, talking with other people, strategizing. And so at the end of the day, the most valuable software engineer is the person who's churning out the most code, who you can go and rely on, who you can ask about how to get a feature done or what the time estimate for a project is. And then, well, everybody else in the company, they're just creating a bunch of noise around you, trying to.
Okay, so I think maybe he's working off the theory that in a company, 20% of the people do 80% of the work theory, where most people are generally useless, but there's a couple of them, probably the ones that churn out the most code, that are actually doing useful stuff. But that's not, that's all situational. You don't know that. Just because somebody doesn't churn out a bunch of code doesn't mean they're useless, or whatever he's trying to say. His point seems very convoluted, and he's just looking for view time.
To be useful, they're trying to come and say, hey, can I help design a button for you? Do you need a button? Do you need
No one needs a button. Get out of here with your buttons.
me to manage you? Do you need me to unblock you? What can I do to pretend that I'm useful here? That's really what most other people are doing.
Do you need me to help you? Do you need me to unblock you? Okay, so it is kind of true that when you get into an organization, you have access to certain things, and there's a reason for that. They don't want someone that on day one to have access to everything in the company and then just download it to their personal drive or whatever and then quit and say, oh, I got all your company secrets. Yeah, they don't do that. You slowly get access to the things you need generally in a company, and the reason isn't for the upper management to waste time. It's generally to protect the business. And if someone steals all your stuff anyway, yeah, that could really, well, who knows? It's just obviously an illegal thing. So there's a reason that not everybody has access to everything.
And then even other software engineers, most of them, they can't even code, and they need to.
Wait, if software engineers can't code, why are they getting hired into software engineer positions? I don't quite understand.
Pair program with you so that you do most of the work for them. A lot of people are just going around faking it, pretending.
Now, it is also no secret that coding is pretty hard, and when you get into a new organization, you have to figure out their style and what is acceptable for their code base and all that, and that varies a lot. So sometimes that takes a new guy some time, and it helps a lot to be able to see someone more senior and that pushes code all the time, kind of see their process and see, okay, what do I need to change from my process to kind of get up to par? There's stuff like that, and that's totally understandable. What are we doing, tech lead? Are we just not supposed to learn? No learning allowed? You just kind of have to know it. You have to be a millionaire software engineer only. That's the only way you're valid at all. Is that what's going on here? I'm just really confused by this video. I was expecting to get some info, but all I'm getting is trash can. All right, let's keep going.
That they're trying to do something, and it's like, if you can just manage to sit down for a few hours and just take a quick look at the code instead of chatting with your coworkers, going on Reddit, surfing Facebook, going across the street for an espresso, going down to lunch for a full course meal.
I don't understand. I'm still. Most people work 40-hour work weeks. Yeah, you got like an hour for lunch that's typically unpaid. So there's some time, and most of your time at work, yeah, you're probably going to be working on stuff. You might waste a little time here and there, sure, but he's saying like people waste all 40 hours of their work week all the time. And maybe some do, but that's not something I'm used to. When I'm at a job, I typically try to get the job done so I can go home on time and stuff like that. It depends what the job is. Some of them you leave on time no matter what, and maybe it's easier to slack off on those. But in a lot of the jobs I've done, I like having goal-oriented jobs where I can work towards a goal and I need to get that goal done. Maybe they don't have that at Facebook or wherever he came from.
Grabbing an ice cream on the way back, checking your email, checking your Facebook again, responding to the email, checking your Facebook again. Like, if you can just stop with all this distraction and just take a look at the code, it's going to put you miles ahead. There are often...
Okay. So, new revelation here from TechLead. Not wasting time will put you miles ahead. Yeah, we already knew that.
and coworkers who schedule random meetings for you with no agenda just to waste your time, and they just want to throw a pity party for themselves and worry and cause a bunch of anxiety and debate and think about this. And
What? How do you know? There's so many presumptions in this situation that are actually unknowns. Like, so wait, let's hypothetically say a coworker send you a meeting request, and it's got to have something. It can't just be untitled, right? Or you're going to ask, "What's this meeting for?" So they need to have something, and maybe they just want to ask you a few questions, and that's fine. Why wouldn't you answer questions for someone else you work with? After all, how do you expect them to be productive if you won't answer their questions, or you won't teach them how to do any of the business critical stuff that's kind of an inside secret? You have to teach new people. I think what Patrick is going into here is he's saying everybody should already know anything, and I shouldn't ever have to teach everyone. I'm a lone soldier in this organization, or whatever. That's what I'm hearing from him. So he sounds like an absolute nightmare to work with. Can't imagine this guy being my boss. I'd probably quit pretty quick. uh, Usually I try to end things on good terms if I have to, but I could see myself giving Patrick the finger on the way out.
you could spend weeks really on an email going back and forth when in reality the answer was just a one-liner in code. And the funny thing is, sometimes I'll see software engineers prey on these anxieties. Like they'll say that the abstract virtual factory manager is incapable of integrating with some mixin factory due to the Q class not really supporting offline networks. And then everybody will say, whoa, that sounds crazy. That sounds pretty hard. So how long
uh, that sounds crazy. That sounds pretty hard. I would just say to that person that said that, I have no idea what that means. That's what I would say to him. Like in a meeting, if someone said that thing to me, I would just look at them, maybe look around the room and look back at them and say, I have no idea what that means. And they might try to play the card of, oh, when people do stuff like that, they're always like, they're trying to make themselves look higher or bigger than you and whatever it is. And you can just call them out, because I guarantee you nobody else understands it either. So why are you all listening to them? It's like this mob mentality has gone way too far. Jeez, does anybody have any common sense anymore? Patrick, have we seen you in the riots? Have you been out there breaking windows? Are you going with this too? I don't know.
long is this going to take? And then the engineer will say, give me 2 days and I'll give you an estimate. And really, if you are a good software engineer, then you're going to make it easy for other people instead of giving them all of the crazy little technical details that really nobody cares about or
There we go. Yeah, if you're a good engineer, you will make it easy for other people. That's probably the first good thing or intelligent thing he said in this video.
understands or really wants to know. Just tell them, give them a timeline, right? Just tell them, I'll get this done in 2 days. And then when 2 days comes, make sure you deliver on that. And you don't really need to go into the weeds about all the crazy details because at the end of the day, nobody cares about any of that code. Code is garbage. All right, moving on.
What? What? You're contradicting yourself a lot. Okay, so on the first point, you were mad at everybody because nobody looked at the code at all. And on the second point is you said, no, you don't need the details. The fine details don't matter. Nobody needs to know anyway. Don't look at the code. What? Those are contradicting things.
The second lesson for software engineers is that designers are the problem. Generally, what you find
Designers are the problem. All right, this is gonna be good. Let's hear out your crappy logic.
is that software engineers are building a bunch of random one-off features and code to support a bunch of
Who's building a bunch of one-off random features in code? I don't. Companies don't normally do that. I don't know where you came from where they do that. Facebook? Is that what's happening at Facebook? I'm guessing.
scattered features all over the app. And it's like this page has a button designed in one way. And
He's talking about pages. Okay, so most of these software engineers on YouTube are not really software engineers. They're usually just web programmers, which, you can call software engineer because you're engineering software and stuff. But I guess what I'm saying, maybe I'm saying this completely wrong. I don't really consider being a web specialist a computer scientist. I'm more in the computer scientist realm of things. So I don't know where I'm really going with this other than I feel like he's missaying something here. Let's continue.
And then another page has a button that flashes and animates. And then another page has a pop-up dialog. And then there's another pop-up dialog that animates and bursts open. And then you have another pop-up dialog and a menu. And then you find inconsistencies throughout the whole entire project, multiple ways to build multiple different types of buttons, fonts, layouts, text that just look different from one another. And people are building things over and over again because each time the designer wants something a little bit different. And so I tend to believe that you should not be building features. You should be building a system. You build it just
Well, yeah, I think this is kind of a good point. Like, yeah, if you build a bunch of individual features, it gets kind of clunky. Most applications are built around tool sets, so you're often building tool sets and stuff like that to build further of what you want. I think that's pretty common, and maybe that's what he's saying here. I kind of agree with that point.
generic design system that can support any number of features. And
But then when you build a generic design system, you're kind of building some form of like an engine or something, or you're redesigning Vue or something. I don't know, Vue.js.
once you build it, then
Like
that should
how,
be enough. And then the problem is when some artsy designer comes in and they really have no rational, logical thought. It's just like whatever looks good. And there's no consistency or design language or system or process in anything that they do. So they'll
what do you mean none? Pretty sure that last statement isn't even possible of being true. It's just like 100% false.
say they want a button. And instead of using the pre-built button that you already have, they say that they want this button to be 1 pixel off. It's like, okay, then you have to create a whole new button for this. And then the next designer wants a button that's a little bit different shade and color. And so you have 3 buttons now, and then it just explodes the code base into thousands of files, and you have to hire thousands of engineers just to support each different design that a designer has, instead of just coming up with a consistent set of, say, 10 different designs. Now, the third lesson I have here is that
I don't really fully understand that point. I think he's just saying make tools to make stuff rather than making stuff. I guess that's the point. Sometimes that makes sense. Other times I don't know. And
so many software engineers, they think that they're so smart because they're the only technical person within their smaller group of friends or their family, and they're the computer guy. And the fact is, get off your high horse. Stop trying to be so smart. People
I don't know if that's true or not.
don't want that. You know what really works in a software system is not cleverness, but consistency. Consistency can really improve the readability of code, your ability to quickly navigate through huge swaths of files. And so imagine that you have a software system with
Hold on. What? This is a really scattered point. So it went from technical people are like really conceited and on some kind of high horse to write consistent code. That was how that segue. I don't get it. What? What does that have to do with it? I don't understand, tech lead.
with 1,000 files, and all of them are named something different. Like you
Wait, and what? I'm still trying to figure out what he's even saying. Like, so is he saying that if you're on your high horse and conceited because you're a good tech or think you're a good tech, then you're not gonna write consistent code? Why would that be the case? Why? How do those relate at all? Why are those related? I don't get it.
have an abstract factory, abstract factory mixin, abstract adapter, controller, view data, queue object, a queue object, controller manager factory, queue.
This guy is like the George Carlin of coding. He just says a bunch of BS until everybody laughs.
Object data factory, virtual abstract factory class mixin. When you have all of these random objects and data is flowing all over the place, you have to learn how does this whole thing fit together like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. Whereas compare that to, what if I told you that all of these 1,000 files, they're named one of 3 things. They're either a model, view, or controller, right? Like MVC architecture. Then, yeah, maybe that's not going to be the most optimal way or cleverest way to write it, but it makes it extremely simple to quickly parse the files and figure out what's going on, right?
He's got a good point here.
Take a look at file.
It does make sense to have I agree, at least here. It does make sense to have your code organized in a way that newcomers, especially newcomers, can understand and work on things without worrying about breaking things. So he's basically just saying don't spaghetti your code too much. Follow a structure. And yeah, that's That's fine. I still don't understand how that goes with technical people are generally in a small circle where they're the only technical person and think they're the best. Where did that come from? I don't understand.
Oh, that's a model object. That's just going to be data. You got a view object, and that's only for display, or you have controller, and that's just for business logic. And then next time you see a bug in, say, layout, you know exactly where that's going to be. That's going to be in one of the view files. If there's an issue with business logic, that's going to be in the controller. And then next time it comes time to refactor everything, like let's say you want to add dark mode support, for instance, then you know you just need to touch the view objects. If you want to add offline support, maybe you just touch the model object, for instance, that's the data. And so I would say that consistency is one of the most important things in software engineering, maybe more important than even simplicity. So if I'm expecting code to be somewhere, but it's not there, then that's going to throw me off and it's going to take me time to get my bearings straight. And so
This is a good point. I agree. Yeah, if you think you know where something should be, if it makes sense for it to be somewhere and it's just not there and then you have to go find it elsewhere, that's kind of obnoxious, but like it's hard to find a perfect way of doing that. I think one of my favorite things to do on a new code base is use a lot of grep and recursive searching, especially for keywords, unless they're using some form of editor where you can search everything in the code base. Stuff like that can help a lot, but yeah, organization's pretty big. Design, having your design thought out beforehand is pretty big. I would agree with those.
consistency helps with readability for not just yourself, but for the entire team, such that anybody can quickly grasp what's going on without necessarily even
Yep.
reading the code very deeply. Because as I mentioned, the fact is nobody really reads code. And so consistency is also
Nobody really reads code. I do. I step through it and try to analyze every little thing when I'm reading code. But wait a minute. I don't know, man. I feel like some people read code. You can't just say nobody reads code. Does that mean he doesn't read code? Is he just like self-reflecting here? Like, I'm not gonna read your code because all code is garbage. However, organize it in this specific way, and I'm still not gonna look at it anyway. So what does it matter? I don't. Oh, jeez.
also one reason that I recommend against splitting your tech stack. For example, if you're doing iOS code, sometimes people will be writing an Objective-C and then another person randomly comes in and they want to start writing in Swift. And then someone wants to bring in React Native or someone wants to bring in Flutter. And then you've got 4 different tech stacks. Maybe someone brings in web views and everybody is writing code in a different way. And there's multiple ways of implementing the same features. And so the problem is when you go to debug something or to add a feature, you don't even know where to begin because you may be expecting an MVC architecture, but it turns out somebody implemented this using React Native. So then you start digging into the React Native code to figure out how they implemented it. And it turns out, hey, that code was actually
JS, 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 JS. Is everyone on YouTube just a JS programmer? Is that the only language you know is JS?
calling out to
Stop with the JS. I don't care about JS. That's just my personal thing. I'm so annoyed when I find a new coder, or I don't know. I guess I'll say I'm always annoyed when I find a new video that I think is going to be really insightful about code, and all their examples are just like JS web programming examples. It just makes me cringe so much. I'm like, no, show me something real.
Flutter to actually do the work. Who knows? Now, my next tip is what really sets apart senior engineers from junior engineers is that, like, you just have to stop screwing around. I mean, essentially, that's it. Like, senior engineers execute. And with junior engineers, they're just so unreliable. You pass them a project, you expect them to get it done. 2 weeks later, they haven't done anything with it. And
Why? Okay. Let's unpack that a little bit. I think he's mostly right, though. Okay, so yeah, to be a senior engineer, you got to get stuff done. You got to deliver. Sure, that's how you get to those positions. And yeah, I feel like if a junior engineer did absolutely nothing on a project they're given for 2 weeks, especially if it's their only project, they probably are going to get fired. To be honest, like why would they be at the company at all? Wouldn't the manager be like, look, I'm not really sure why we're paying you. You're just kind of coming in and nothing's actually, you've produced absolutely nothing, like zero. It's complete zilch. It's really hard to work with zilch. I don't know if that's a thing that people recognize, but Zero is a really hard number to work with. You ever had a relationship with someone and one of you just stopped talking or something and just went zero contact? You can't work with that person anymore. I'm trying to think of a better example, really, but I can think of a few like random personal ones, but nothing that really helps. Like, I'm trying to think of something that's to put it into perspective. Like, okay, like I once got a. I can't think of any examples. I think you guys get the point anyway. Just you need something to go off of is the point. If someone gives you nothing, that's usually a sign that it's done. You know, that hey, it's not working out. It's not. There's nothing you can do about it. You gotta move on, basically, so to speak. And if that means you gotta get rid of your new junior dev because they do zilch, absolutely nothing, a zero delivery. You know, if they delivered one thing, that's at least something. You can say, well, he didn't do that. But if zero, that's nothing. That's nothing. You're just burning money or donating money to them to show up, basically. And that's not how work is or should be. Anyways, the example I was thinking of, and I guess I'll give it. I'll keep it somewhat. Whatever. I just won't say any names. Well, someone I know was having some trouble and not getting along so well, and someone else, kind of out of the blue, once called me and said, "Hey, so and so's not doing so well. It's this has been going on for a long time. I need you to do something." And my response was, "Okay, it's been a month since I heard from you last. I've had no updates, no knowing of this situation, nothing. This is the first I'm hearing of the situation, and you want me to do something immediately? No, because you've given me zero information. You're suddenly at some kind of ultimatum. I have no clue how it built up to this. I need something. You said it's been going on for a long time. What's a long time? Was it going on a month ago when you talked to me? Well, no. Then what's a long time? Is that 2 weeks? Why didn't you tell me 2 weeks ago or the day after? Why, there's, I got nothing to go off of here. You're dead in the water. It's on you." So that's my point. All right, let's continue.
They've just been reading documentation and surfing Reddit all day long, it turns out.
What's with this? He must surf Reddit a lot. He has that on his mind a lot.
So one thing about senior,
I'm guessing, given how conceited this guy tends to be, and I'm not saying that to diss him, it's just really obvious. Everybody knows he's really conceited and he just makes sarcastic videos and it's kind of all about him and his money, yada yada. That's how his channel is. That's not me being down on him. That's just kind of me explaining his channel. And obviously it works. He makes tons of money from this channel. He gets sponsored and everything. It's nuts. So I guess what you got to do to be successful is be a D-bag. Okay, I can't say it. All right. Well, let's just continue watching. I forget what I was even going to say anymore because I started ragging on his channel.
Junior engineers is that they don't get themselves blocked. You give a project to a junior engineer, they're so prideful and they don't want to ask for help. And then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, they're still digging around the code by themselves and they haven't told anybody anything about what they're doing. Whereas,
yeah, that's bad. That's real bad. For as much as I'm ragging on TechLead here, I'm also somewhat sarcastically joking, although some of that's laced in truth. Obviously, you don't need me to tell that, but
senior engineers, though, at least know, like, okay, they don't want to spend.
I guess my point is, and I'm not even listening to the video anymore, is I don't personally care what he does in his life. It doesn't affect me. It's just sometimes I see channels that are successful and it really blows my mind. So, but he keeps going and he keeps doing it. It really shows you that being consistent and keeping making videos will eventually get you to a better place on YouTube, I guess. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Hopefully I'm not making totally garbage content.
More than a day or two on something, they have high communication and they'll go talk to the people that they need to in order to unblock a project and ensure its success. Moving on, my next lesson is that for software engineers working in teams, the silent treatment in which you just ignore other people and you don't tell them what's going on, it doesn't really work.
No crap. What? We've been waiting for this revelation. Thanks for telling us. Thanks for letting us know that giving us no information is not helpful. Yeah, I guess I kind of just went into the same thing. So bite my own foot by making fun of him for it.
It may work in relationships.
It may work in relationships. Are you kidding me? It may not work in relationships too. After all, you did get divorced
You can
and
try and let
stuff.
me know. But in general, over communicating is necessary for high performing software engineers.
Over communicating. I like that way of putting it. Yeah, over communicating is good.
One thing is that, as I mentioned, since nobody has a clue about what you're doing, if you give a time estimate, then you need to hold yourself accountable to that. Otherwise,
Yes.
if you know you're going to slip, then give people proper forewarning about that.
Yes.
Similarly, if other people say things that they're going to do at the end of the meeting, send out some brief meeting notes so that you hold other people accountable in order to ensure your own project success.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty common human decency here. Be honest, be transparent. That's what everybody looks for in a coworker, someone that's actually honest and transparent. It's very rare though. Very rare. So if you can manage to be both honest and transparent, you can probably get any job in the world.
As well. Otherwise,
Good luck though. I don't even know how to do that. Honestly, I have such a freaking hard time sharing anything that it's ridiculous. It makes me mad. I don't know how to be transparent. How do you be transparent? Okay, well, big stuff I'll mention, but when it comes to my day-to-day life and like I don't know, I'm just working on my own personal projects. Do I need to update people about that? No, not really. So that's where I struggle. But if I'm working on something with somebody, I'm pretty good at letting them know every little thing. But usually what happens is well, almost all the time what happens is it becomes just me because no one can seem to keep up with me. And I know that sounds like a brag, but actually it's really, really, really frustrating. It's the opposite of a brag. It sucks. I pretty much am always stuck working alone because whatever I'm working on, I can't find anybody else that understands it or that is willing to dig in where I am. So that's kind of one of the reasons I'm reaching out over the internet. My little circle of friends is none of them are really coders. So, and the few that are mostly have moved away now since college and stuff. So it's very hard to find people that are deeply involved in the same little niche hobbies and stuff you are, unless you're at a job where that's what you're doing and that's what you're all hired for. Then it's easy because you're both on the same page and you both love it. Well, ideally you love it. Maybe you don't. I don't know. So I think he's got a good point here.
People are lazy, they're not going to do what they say they're going to do, and then you're going to be on the hook for that when your project starts to slip.
Yeah, I guess that's another good point. Yeah, if people, um, geez, I could really go into that pretty hard actually, but I think I'm going to refrain.
Similarly, if you're submitting code for review, then instead of just giving this huge swath of code, which nobody has any idea what's going on and it takes people by surprise, and then people start delaying your code because they are checking it and they don't know what you're up to. If you communicate with people and let them know, like, this is the feature you're working on, this is how you're going to do it, you agree with them on the design, and then if you can break down the commits into smaller chunks that are easy for people to read, because nobody really wants to read, right? So you break it down such that it's really easy for people to approve that can help speed up your work. And so programming is kind of like a team sport where
He seems to have this mentality where nobody wants to do anything. What kind of people is he working with? If you're working with people that don't want to do anything, then why are they working there? I get it on a personal level when you're asking someone for help and they're not getting compensated for their time and stuff, but when it's their job, why are they working there if they're not willing to put the time in? Isn't that like 0 hours of work, zero pay type of thing? I'm really confused. This seems to be a very common thing, though. He's mentioned it multiple times that most people don't actually do work while they're at work. I'm not used to that. I've seen people waste time at work, but in general, they have to get their jobs done. Um, so to say that they never get anything done is a little strange.
everybody's lazy, nobody wants to read code, half the people don't even know how to read your code, people don't want to be held accountable, you use
People know how to read your code. Maybe they're not taking the time to walk through it or whatever, but that's a different thing. It does take a lot of time. He's just using a lot of absolute words, a lot of nobody and stuff like that.
communication.
It confuses me. I think he actually means like 0% of people. Like if you take 1 million people, 0 of them will do it, and that's not true.
and explicit emails in order to hold people accountable and make sure that the code that you submit is as easily comprehensible to other people as possible. My next tip is that for software engineers, time management, it's actually a huge deal because if you think about it, anybody can code given enough time. So what really sets apart good programmers is their ability to manage time. Some people will pre-optimize code needlessly, making sure
Okay, he's got a good point here. Optimizing time is a tricky thing. Coding can take a long time. I have a much different take on this. I'm curious to see what he's going to say, but I'll share my point after.
it runs super fast. It can scale up to 100 million users. It's like maybe you didn't need all that speed and it took 2-3 additional days just to build in support for that. It could take an extra few months just to build
Concepting is important.
support for some of this stuff. And one
Make a simple, crappy concept first, I think is what he's going to get into. And then if it's really what you want, that's when you optimize it. And that's pretty standard with software development. That every software developer should know that.
common time suck is refactoring just for the sake of refactoring because you felt that the code didn't look that clean to you, even though it
Yeah, we've all been there.
looks pretty clean to somebody else, and you may spend a whole bunch of time refactoring a piece of code only to find that the entire feature is thrown out the next month. The fact is, the entire code base will probably look like trash in just 2 to 3 years. So I'm not saying to never refactor, but to carefully think about the goal, the purpose of that refactor if you're going to do it.
Yeah, I think you should only refactor if you know for sure it's going to make improvements, basically. But the real way to save time with coding is to know what you're going to code before you code it. Right? I guess that sounds obvious. How do you write anything unless you know what to write, kind of thing? But you can't just let's say like when you're writing like a creative story or something, you can kind of make it up as you go and fill in the holes. But with coding, you actually kind of need to know what you're doing and plan ahead. And design is actually really important for that. I think what he's calling design and what I'm calling design are two different things. What he's calling design is like what your buttons look like and stuff. What I'm calling design is how everything is actually designed to work together. I'm not really talking about the art so much. He's calling design art, or he's calling art design, I think, because he's talking about like how it looks and stuff. When I say design, I'm talking about how things interact with each other. I don't really care what they look like, just as long as it's obvious what it is, that's good enough, kind of thing. But to have like the flow worked out, like, so you know where you're going. I guess they're both intertwined. Maybe I'm eating my shoe on that one, but it's something like that.
Now, building a side project or business is one of the best ways to get noticed as a software engineer, which is why you'll want to check out squarespace.com.
Oh, another ad. I'm not gonna do it. Maybe one day I'll have some of my own, but right now I am just a little channel with no ads or anything. I really appreciate your support. Let me know what you want me to react to next here on Code Tech and Tutorials. Robed coding, robed reactions. Let's get to the full camp. Yeah, robed reactions. So it's been a lot of fun. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Stay cool, keep coding, and I don't know, insert cool word here. Yeah. Peace out.